Well, we got an important game this week as they get more important as the season goes along. We're playing a very good football team that has some very talented players that seem to get everybody healthy and hit stride last week when they beat BYU. The two teams were the teams that were preseason picked to win their side of the conference, so both of our teams coming into the season were expected to be good, and both teams are good, so it's going to be probably going to be a great game.
Rocky, has this become the Aztecs' great rivalry, considering what they became and now what you've developed this into?
No, I don't think the two schools have played each other enough to have developed a rivalry to this point. I mean, to develop a rivalry, you got to play each other a lot of times. I think we've played 4 times total. That's a long way from being a rivalry. I would say our rivals are Fresno State.
Which brings up the question, how do you keep your players from looking ahead to the rivalry game and focusing on Boise State this week?
I don't think either team will have any trouble worrying about next week's game. I think both teams will be into this week's game.
Is there any extra motivation this week because Boise State's kind of looked at as the face of the Mountain West, and you guys obviously are now emerging as the face?
I don't think it's any different than any other game. I think that both teams will be highly motivated. Both teams want to win. Both teams want to win the conference championship. It's no different than every league game that we play.
Are you disappointed you're not moving in the rankings at all, considering you keep winning and people above you keep losing, and the rest of the nation doesn't pay any attention?
No, I don't look at those things. I don't worry about those things. Those things only matter at the end of the year anyway. So as the season goes along, it doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever.
Why do you think it's that way, though?
I have no idea.
Rocky came into the season probably thinking you're going to see the 2-time All-Mountain West quarterback for an entire game in Ripon, and now they've developed this other guy, brought him in. He seems to be really effective at times. How does it change how you guys are able to approach this game?
It makes it more difficult to get ready to play him because both quarterbacks are very good players, and both quarterbacks have a little different expertise. So when they alternate them, when they bring them in, it's not entirely a different offense, but what they emphasize on offense is different depending on which quarterback's in there. So basically, you're getting ready for 2 teams in the same week.
Yeah. The Kozar, he seems like he's the guy that you kind of have to occupy somebody as a little bit of a spy in some ways. That then kind of takes a little bit of run defense away.
Well, no, they have some quarterback design runs with him, which basically gives them an extra blocker. I mean, they'll run stretch plays and zone plays and power plays with him as the primary ball carrier. So that means the back in the backfield, they can flare him out of there and take a defender out of the box, or they can use him as a blocker. So they outnumber you. As soon as the quarterback becomes the primary ball carrier, they outnumber you at the line of scrimmage. And they have several running plays when he's the quarterback.
If you had a similar guy, would you kind of do the same thing they're doing? Because the flip side of it is that you create a little bit of a, I don't know if confusion's the word, but you create some uncertainty with when you're going to put the guy in, how do we put him in, and how do we use him, all that. Would you?
Oh, I think that would be a concern if it was the very first game that they've done it. I think it became important because Ripien got hurt. So they started playing and realized the other guy had a lot to give, a lot to help their team. And I think both quarterbacks are team guys, and I'm sure both quarterbacks appreciate the ability of the other guy. So after they've done it for 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think it makes a bit of difference. In fact, I think it helps them.
And how impressive has Ripon been in the first 2 years, given that he started as a true freshman? You know that that's not easy for anybody to do. How impressed have you been with him?
I think he's one of the better throwing quarterbacks, drop-back quarterbacks in the country. You know, he got hurt in the very first game, so he missed a little bit of time, but he sure looked like he was back last week.
They also have a young offensive line, kind of similar to you guys. Have you seen them in the film kind of develop from, because they struggled quite a bit in the early couple of games.
I thought they're kind of like our team. Our offensive line's getting better, and so is theirs. And I thought their offensive line played really well against BYU, and BYU's got some big guys up front, big, strong front seven, and they did a nice job against them.
The fact that they put 44 on the board at Washington State, they're still pretty explosive, pretty dangerous, even though some of the other games it hasn't gone that way.
Well, I think they probably are very disappointed they didn't win that game. I thought after watching the film they deserved to win that game. And if they had won that game, I'm sure they'd be ranked in the top 25, which they're normally ranked up there, and I'm sure they're working to get back there.
Once your offensive line had about a half a season under its belt, I think you felt like it was really going to start taking off. Is that where you think it's going, or do you think it's been hindered because of injuries?
Yeah, I think our progress has been slowed because of injuries. Our most experienced offensive lineman's playing on a bad ankle, you know, and last week we had to put a new guy in because of an injury to one of our offensive tackles. So at times we're a lot younger than we started out to be, but they're making progress. Even when we substituted the guys in for injuries and stuff, they played okay. They played pretty good.
How is Chief playing given what he's dealing with right now? Because it looks like
He's playing all right on a bum ankle. Obviously, he's not playing as good as he can when he's healthy. But having his experience in there makes a difference. I mean, at least we're targeting the right way in pass protection, and he does a pretty good job when he pulls. He's just not as strong at the point of attack as he would be if his ankle was healthy.
Is that where he's kind of got a limp for the bye week, and then would you give him kind of almost the whole week off just to really get better?
Well, we give him most of the week off as we go right now. I mean, he doesn't practice very much. He just plays in the game. I'm sure if he had a complete week of not doing anything or not playing in the game, he might be well. But we gave him almost the whole week off 2 weeks ago, and he was a little bit better. And he's a little bit better now than he was at this time last week. But it's a slow process when you actually play in the game.
Rocky, which part of your defense has made the biggest jump?
Oh, I think we're very inconsistent on defense. I think at times we play well, and at times we don't play well. And in this day and age, when you give up a big play or two, that's kind of normal in this day and age. I mean, all you have to do is watch games on TV, and since we play so late at night, I get to watch a whole bunch of games on TV on Saturday. And it's an explosive game now, much more so than it was a few years back. And there's a lot of big plays in every game. But we're still making a lot of mistakes, assignment mistakes in there, things like that put us in a bad position. But we're getting better on that side of the ball, too.
Rocky, I know you like to say, this Saturday's game's the biggest game, and then next Saturday's
I don't
game
like to say that. You guys like to say
you
that.
can say it too. But that's kind of when you're playing high-stakes college football. That's the beauty of it. Each game, each week, you can kind of get eliminated. Now that the program's been elevated, and we're talking about New Year's Six bowls and things like that.
You're talking about that. I'm not.
Okay. Me and hundreds of other people. How aware are you that each game, what is at stake, this Saturday, next Saturday, millions of dollars in bowl payouts, New Year's Six bowls, BCS rankings, how aware are you of that, and how fun is it for San Diego State to be part of that discussion?
Well, I know that's out there, and I am aware of it, but I don't spend any time at all thinking about it. And I spend a lot of my time making sure our players don't think about it. Because that's all wonderful, and I guess that's all good to talk about that and think about that, but that doesn't mean a darn thing if we lose this weekend. So if you don't take things one at a time or take it as it's coming, you'll be very disappointed.
Let's talk about Michael Holder. Obviously, great performance, not catch 144 yards a week after his targeting disqualification. And I'm sure it's probably weighing in on his mind to try to avoid that mistake. How did things work mentally during that week between games?
He's a veteran player. I don't think it bothered him at all. I think players now that are suspended for a game because of targeting, I don't think 90% of them, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I think it's an accident. I think they're trying to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, and it just is a hit that's a little higher than it's supposed to be. And I don't think I think they feel bad that they're out of the game, but I don't think they feel bad for doing it. I mean, that's part of the game. And he's a veteran guy, and a veteran guy's not going to let that kind of stuff bother him the next week.
Rocky, how much do you rely on your seniors to kind of keep the lid on all this chatter that's out there? I mean, keep guys from getting overly excited and looking too far down the road.
Well, you rely on the mature players in your program to keep everybody on an even keel. And the more experience you have, I mean, our team last year thought they were going to be one of those teams too. And we lost 3 games. And we were ranked early in the season and lost a game and got unranked. And then we got ranked again and lost a game and got unranked. And we had to fight like crazy to get back to be ranked at the end of the year. So the guys that were in our program last year understand. Now we've got some young freshmen that are playing that might not understand, and they don't want to understand. And you're not going to make them understand no matter what you tell them. So you count on the veteran guys and the mature guys in your program to keep things on an even keel.
Are those guys doing a good job this year?
I think that I'm very proud of how our seniors are leading to this point. I think they learned a lot from last year, and I think they've handled themselves very well.
You've had 2 home games in a row means that the potential recruits will be looking at the program, looking at the games, being with the team. Is that a distraction for your players who are escorting these recruits, or does that actually reinforce things mentally as they think about the SDSU mentality?
This time of year, our players have no interaction with the recruits, unless they're friends from before and they talk to each other on the phone. During the season, we have no interaction. As a staff, we invite players and recruits to the game, but we don't have official weekends during the season because that's my choice. Our responsibility is to our team, not to our future team. It's to our team now. It's not to the future team. And when those recruits come to games, our players don't have any interaction with them. So it's no distraction whatsoever.
Can you talk about how you developed through the years, making the seniors more involved in kind of getting through the team? And I mean, could you meet with them all the time?
I meet with them 2 or 3 times a week during the season and once a week in the off season. When I first became a head coach, I thought that the key to any football program or any team is that you have inner leadership. And I started off doing it with representatives from every class. So you'd have a freshman or 2, you'd have a sophomore or 2, you'd have a junior or 2, and you'd have a senior or 2. And to be honest with you, those freshmen and sophomores don't even know which end is up. So it was a waste of time. So I figured out that the seniors had a lot to offer, because the ones that were going to the NFL, that's wonderful, but the majority of guys are not going to the NFL, and they're actually mature enough to start realizing they have to think about something to do with their lives when they're done. So they're a lot more mature, and they're a lot more understanding of the big picture. So whenever it was, I started meeting with the seniors only. And by the way, it's much, much better meeting with just the seniors. We actually can have a conversation.
What do you think it means to have the message come from their peers rather than their coaches?
I think it means a lot more coming from their peers than it does from the coaches. I think we have a good trust between the players and the coaches, but there's a bond between teammates that is stronger than a lot of bonds that you have with friends. My best friends in the world are 3 guys I played with.
You're about to catch and pass Claude Gilbert for number 2 all-time in school history. What does it mean to you to move up like that?
I didn't know that, and I don't think about that.
But it shows you've achieved something here and significantly.
I'll worry about that when I'm done.
Rocky, just talk a little bit about Boise's defense and how they're going to stack against your run and what you might be worried about there.
Well, statistically, Boise is one of the best run defenses in the country. They do a great job. I mean, and people ask me about the scheme. Well, we see the scheme, it's pretty much the same every week, where everybody, they might line them up a little bit different, but there's 8 or 9 or 10 guys up there to stop the run every week. They just might line them a little different. Boise's one of the top rush defenses in the country because of players, not because of scheme, because of players. They have an excellent defensive line. They have really good linebackers, and their secondary is very aggressive. So having good players up there and put 8 or 9 or 10 in the box is a whole lot different than having average players up there and putting 8 or 9 or 10 in the box. So I don't know exactly how they're going to line up, but there'll be enough guys up there to give us a lot of trouble running the ball, and they have good players up there, so that makes them a tough task for us this weekend.
Unsung aspect of what you're doing offensively, Christian's ability to get you in and out of plays, his maturity, his growth. Can you talk about his football intellect?
I think that I think I said this last week, that he's probably the player on our team that doesn't get enough credit. I mean, we think the offensive, in my opinion, games are won and lost up front. And the offensive line has to play well enough to give you a chance to score enough points and win the game. But if you don't have a quarterback that can make decisions and plays in critical times, you don't have a chance to win. I think last year Christian did a nice job of getting us in the right play and calling the right protections and making a play or two himself. This year he's making a lot of plays himself, especially in play action pass. Last week he made a couple throws that were really nice throws in critical situations for first downs. He made a couple of very nice throws that ended up big plays with people in his face or right before he got hit. I think he's turned into an excellent quarterback.
Were you impressed with his change of direction at the goal line on the touchdown?
Well, that was a nice run. I'm glad. You know, I didn't see him slide. You know, because there was a defender there that might have hit him. And I didn't see him slide. And I mean, I thought it was a nice run. Now, if you want the truth of the matter, after I watched the film, I can't believe it worked, because now we're back to players. You all want, you know, scheme and all that. It's all players. They called the perfect defense to prevent quarterback draw. They did. They had a double A-gap blitz on, which almost 99 out of 100 times will stop a quarterback draw. Well, it didn't in this case. And part of that is because Christian made a nice move and made somebody miss. But that play should have never worked against the defense they called.
It was a nice move, though. That was one of those unexpected.
It didn't look quite like Penny doing it, though, did it? Or Jawan Washington, it didn't quite look like that.
But Maxwell Smith might not have made that.
That's right.
Hey, Rocky, do you guys have any discussions about if anyone on your team wants to kneel for the national anthem or anything like that? And if so, what have you told your players or your seniors?
I've talked to the seniors about it, but it's not an issue with us because we're not out there when the national anthem is being played. So I don't talk about problems that don't happen. But I've talked to the seniors about it because we talk about all kinds of things. It's really the most fun part of my day, because if I don't have football things to talk to them about, I bring up some other stuff, and it's really interesting where they're coming from. I know how old I am when I talk to them, too.
I know obviously you can't speak publicly about the new stadium proposal, but I mean, would you say that the best way to attract donors, obviously you stay out of the political stuff and avoid risk, but would you say the best way to attract donors is to put together a quality team?
I think success on the field helps, yes. I think it's a part of the whole equation. If you have a quality football team, it's going to help get something done. But you could have a great football team and it's not going to get done unless there's a lot of other things that are put in place.
Rocky, getting back to talking to players, back when we had 9/11, a lot of the Pac-10 coaches had told me that they met with their players, they talked about society, global issues, etc. And obviously you had to talk to your players about the tragedy in Vegas. As a coach, teacher, leader, what's that like to deliver a message to them about life?
I didn't think of it that way. After the tragedy that happened in Vegas, I talked to them about what their understanding of what happened was, and they all were well aware of what happened. And then we discussed on how UNLV was going to design a system before the game to honor those that were involved. And I talked to them about their feelings about that, and they were very honest about everything. And some of them in the room had friends or family or friends of friends at that concert. So the interaction was pretty deep and kind of sobering. But I thought they were very mature about it, and I thought they understand the situation, and I thought they handled themselves very, very well.
When you meet with your seniors, will there be times when maybe football's not front and center? I mean,
More than half the time, football's not front and center. I'll bring up something that they look at me like, what are you talking about? But then eventually they get into it, and it's kind of fun.
What's the key against Boise?
Well, I think they're going to make it very difficult for us to run the ball, but for us to win, we have to be able to run the ball significantly enough to get play action past the work for us. And on defense, the key is to be able to adjust our mindset and our scheme relative to which quarterback's in the game.